Joba, what was the game that stood out to you of Andy Pettitte? There was one game that always stood out to me with Andy Pettitte.
Oh man, I don't know if there's necessarily one. For me, it was like watching two different people. When he got to the playoffs, it was. I mean, he has a whole season in the playoffs. He had 19 wins. He has almost 300 innings in the playoffs. Like, and when we won in 09, I pitched in every single game that he started, and some was coming in right after him. Some there was a bridge, but watching him like when the playoffs started, he's not a big rah this that whatever, but like his demeanor was completely different. Like, and you could tell. For me, it was just watching him in the whole like regular season, like in how man he'd be out there even as he was later in his career. He'd still be out there like 5 o'clock in the 5:30. I think we had morning workouts, and I'm just a dumb young punk kid at this time. I'm like, let's go, old man. I'd be eating breakfast, walking out. He goes, you can run and go and just eat as you're. I was like, yeah, I'm like 22. Like, I'm not almost 40. And so
crackers and peanut butter. Is that what you're doing?
Oh no, I was probably had like an omelet or something. I don't know.
I just got an omelet. Get out of his mouth.
An omelet and a Keurig coffee, just slugging it down on your way out to.
We had one when we were getting ready to work out. We were in, and you know how bad Mikey in Oakland was. He was awful. And so he would have like I think it was Round Table Pizza or something, but like in the convenience store, they just on that little whatever, and I was like. Andy was like, you want to go work out? And I'm just, my fat ass is crushing a piece of pizza. And I'm like, all right, let's go. And so he's like, you really can go. And then we did like stairs. We ran the stadium, did a bunch of other stuff. And he's like, what's wrong with you? I was like, I'm still a kid. I'm hungry again. Can we go eat, dog? Are we done yet?
You know what game that really stood out to me before we get to Goody's Bag of Balls? It was 96. That was the game that really set me to know who Andy Pettitte was. They were down 2-0 against the Braves, and Andy Pettitte was on the mound for game number 3, and he had to win the game. If the Yankees lose that game, they're completely done. I mean, they go down 3-0. The Braves win a championship, and it was Andy Pettitte that went out there and pitched, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was 7.5 or 8 innings where it was just absolute domination. The guy was unhittable in that game, and the Braves couldn't even they barely touched the ball. And that was when that really set me off where, like, who is this guy? Who is Andy Pettitte? And that was Andy Pettitte. That was the start of his great career. And after winning that championship, if anybody were to tell me why the Yankees won that World Series, it was Andy Pettitte's demeanor, because he actually pitched again in that series and was dominant. The Braves could not hit him in that series. That's what reminds me of Andy Pettitte. It was just who he was. He can go on the mound. It doesn't matter in what game, down 2-0, down 3-0, and he's going to find a way to win that game. That's what Andy Pettitte was. So one of the greatest.
He was a sweetheart off the field.
I don't know him personally. I never met. Out of all the guys that I've met,
nicest guy in the world. Nicest guy in the world.
Great golfer too.
He's a lefty.
Really? He's got the biggest legs, man. I watched him.
He's a big dude, man. He's sneaky big.
Yeah.
Well, Hall of Famer needs to be in regardless.
No question. Hall of Famer.
All-time Yankee for sure.
100%. I mean, how many great pitchers could you say that were better than him as long as he was? I mean, he was as good as any Yankee pitcher. I mean, he was a Yankee for what, 17, 18 years on the mound? I mean, he did go to Houston for a little while, but he was a Yankee.
It was 15. I think he was 3 in Houston, I believe.
Yeah, I think he was a Yankee for 17 or 18 years. I mean, that was the longevity. And by the way, the guy never got hurt. And when he was hurt for a very small time, he wasn't out for when was the last time you can remember that Andy Pettitte was out for the whole season? For the whole season?
Probably never, but he took HGH and then he was back and then he pitched a little bit more. So
I think it was one of his last 2 years. I think it was when he actually turned 40. I think he only made like 12 starts or something like that.
I'm looking at his stats right now. Joba was right. Is 15 is a Yankee, 3 is an Astro. He had that injury with the Astros the first year. So that's I think that's when the in 04 when he probably took the HGH for the elbow and came back and was great the next couple of years. Just the ERA was up those last bunch of years because of the AL back then. But
Interesting.
that was pretty much it. And
ERA
then he came
doesn't
back
mean
to the
anything
Yankees.
nowadays. It's ERA plus and
Yeah, I don't have that in front of me, right? Actually, I do have ERA plus. So he really only had 1 year below 100 ERA plus his entire career. One season. So, and he had one season. You said 96, Errol. Actually, his best season was 97.
No. It was 96 that makes
Oh,
I remember
in the playoffs, yeah.
Yes,
In the playoffs.
I remember when
he
they
had
were
one of
down
the best
2-0.
years of all time, though, for Yankee pitcher. They didn't know how to do the metrics in 97. There must have been great ones. He only finished 5th in the Cy Young. I don't know if that's one of the big Pedro years, but he had a 156 ERA plus that year.
It was
which is
96
outrageous.
that really, in my mind, I remember who Andy Pettitte was, what he did in the World Series to get the Yankees back. Remember, the Yankees were down 2-0. They were done. Everybody had the Yankees done in that series. And then all of a sudden, Andy Pettitte goes on the mound in the third game and just completely dominates. And then he goes on the mound, I think, in Game 7. I think it was Game 7 where he dominated again. Was it Game 7?
No, they went to 6.
It was Game 6. I think he came in at the end of the game to help close out the Braves. So, but whatever. That was the series that reminds me of Andy Pettitte.
Before we get off of it, I just wanted to throw my 2 cents out about Andy Pettitte. I know Joba is a big hero of yours and mentor. For me as a kid, I just love watching him play, man. Lefty, there's not too many great lefties. He was one of the greats. The pickoff move was legendary. Probably one of the best of all time.
Best in the
picking
playoffs.
guys off, holding guys on. What an advantage you guys as pitchers know the advantage that you get from being able to do that is just something that's just not measured in statistics, unfortunately. That guy really deserves a lot more credit. And all he did is we know he blew his elbow out. He was older and he tried to use HGH, admitted it, tried to fix his elbow. And guess what? Guess it fixed his elbow because he was able to play for a bunch of more years and play effectively. So why was it that he couldn't do that? And why are we blaming him for that when it was just a small thing?
They do that all the time in Mexico.
I know.
HGH is just another thing. Steroids, another thing.
To me, he's
Greenies,
especially now,
want.
like Goody, and Joba, this. No one's how many guys are throwing 200 innings a year? How many guys are getting enough starts that they can get to the 300? Get to 300. No one's getting to 300 wins ever again. That's not happening. It's where people are. Well, it will take an extraordinary thing because guys get taken out after the second time through the lineup, right? So it's you're going 5-6 innings because the MIT guys say you're not as good anymore after that. So who's going to get to that point? You're not going to let guys like Pettitte get complete games early in his career and just dust people off and just say, all right, I'm better than you. Try to stop us. And it doesn't matter if I got a better, fresher pitcher. I'm going to hold you on the first base and you're not getting the second.
What was the game that stood out?